Hello everyone, here we are then. Welcome to this session as part of Educating Northants 2021. My name is Davenport and I am the Principal at Manor School Sports College. This session is entitled Do Schools Let Us Flourish? And it will look at our journey as we've started to tiptoe towards being deliberately developmental. This session will be a whistle-stop tour and focus on the key questions that we've asked ourselves through the process. I recognise that this may be context or domain specific, and we've been widely influenced by a number of areas. There may be that it leaves you intentionally with more questions than it does answers. So the first question we asked ourselves was, are we flourishing? Are we developing rapidly and successfully as both individuals and collectively? Are we thriving rather than just surviving, even in the most challenging of circumstances that we've seen over the course of the last year? I'm not convinced that this is entirely COVID dependent, because we had our timelines on social media or people within our friendship groups, even prior, well before COVID, who were struggling or perhaps only just surviving and making it known to us that they were finding it difficult. And so what are schools doing in order to enable people to flourish and be much more than just survivors? Often we hear schools are absolutely about people, and it's the people that we've been missing, isn't it, over the course of the last year. We've missed the corridor conversations and those water cooler moments that allow us to absolutely get a sense of the humanity of the place. So are we actually creating the context for people to flourish, or are there something that schools do that make it more difficult? The second question we asked ourselves was, should we focus on culture or structure, the people or the stuff? And this is a dilemma for school leaders all of the time. On the one hand, you just want the organisation to work, and that's the culture of the place where everyone just knows the nuances and how it happens. We also know that the way to get there is often by having a clear structure and consistency and everybody knowing their roles and responsibilities as well. So the people or the stuff becomes a difficult question. And part of the reason for its difficulty is the difficulty in actually defining what culture is. Kat Howard outlines the difficulty in defining culture in her excellent blog, Is Culture a Thing?, where she highlights that the space within which culture exists, if that's which we wish to call such a space, is malleable. It serves as a space that captures the interplay between individuals within the organisation of a school community. So culture is absolutely about people, but people have feelings and emotions, and so therefore it's perhaps easier to work on the stuff, which is much more measurable and easy to demonstrate progress and to put on a school development plan, than it is to really consciously and deliberately work on the people. But the stuff is important. It's really important to see in school improvement terms, or if you're maintaining a standards, that the well-trodden school improvement journey can be really successful by focusing on the stuff. We have to concentrate here, and we've done no differently at Manor. We've focused on things like curriculum and teaching and learning frameworks and inclusion strategies. We focused on how those things interact with each other and that we can measure the progress of whether we're improving or not against key milestones and performance indicators. And for leaders, that's great. It means that we can measure and see the progress that we're plotting and be able to give evidence in terms of our improvement. However, does that mean if we're focusing on the stuff that we're just hoping that the staff are improving? And does this situation let staff flourish? As leaders, if we're spending 70 to 80% of our budget on staffing, can we afford to leave this to chance? So are our staff flourishing, and can we afford to leave it to chance? These are two questions that then we considered. In order to consider this, we looked at these things. How much time do we actually spend deliberately and consciously focusing on our people? How much investment and energy and effort do we put into their individual personal growth? Not just paying lip service to coaching models or action research, but actually finding the time, the space and the mechanisms to allow all staff to focus on self-improvement, to be better and to flourish. At Manor, I think this is the point that we've reached. We've worked on the stuff and the things. We've worked on our curriculum and pedagogy and inclusion strategies, and all the indicators suggest that we're a solidly good school. As part of this, we've moved towards a much more bespoke CPD model, and we have the opportunities in place. But do these really give the time and space for our people and our staff to flourish across the organisation? Something needs to change in order to allow all of our people to flourish, regardless of their role, whether they're leaders or teachers or associate staff, or have some sort of connection with the school. As a result of this thinking, we are now consciously tiptoeing towards being deliberately developmental with a goal of ensuring that everyone can flourish. In order to do this, we went out and looked at high-performing organisations and high-performing teams. We looked at research and readings in order to find out, well, what are the things around people that you can focus on? And we know that these individuals and the collective factors that these teams and organisations have in common. We know that high levels of trust and embracing conflict are really important. We know that individuals and as a collective, they look to add value at all times and take ownership, and they're also open to constant feedback loops. This is something that often we're not great at in school. We'll put on programs in order to help support people develop in their processes, but do we have constant feedback loops, engaging people in conversations that look at both their strengths and their areas for development in both their practice and their pedagogy and their subject knowledge, but also in their character? So we have to ask the question, why are we only tiptoeing towards being a deliberately developmental organisation? Why, if we've asked the questions and gone through the processes, aren't we confidently striding forth towards this goal? And I think that that comes down to the fact that we have to be really careful and considered in considering our context and where we are, and also looking at the domain-specific nature of being a deliberately developmental organisation in an educational setting. We've got a strong climate in place in our school, and we want to maintain that and do nothing to disrupt it. But we also want to be great. And so therefore we've got a choice. We have to have a choice around whether we continue to tighten the things and the stuff, we continue to just look at curriculum and all of the things that we can do that can be measured easily, or whether we really start to take a radical view about how we empower our people in order to be better and to flourish. To do this, I believe, is going to take some courageous leadership in order to allow our people to flourish. We want and we need all of our staff, as well as our students, to be intrinsically motivated through the drivers of mastery, autonomy and purpose, as outlined by Daniel Pink. So what does that mean for us at Manor and our next steps? Well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to focus on the people. We're going to create mechanisms and routines and establish routines that ensure that the main thing that people are working on is themselves. Of course, they will be looking at this alongside the other parts of their role, but this is going to be an important part of our next steps. In order to do this successfully, we're going to have to create a safe environment that people can be self-aware and also give them permission to be vulnerable. People are going to know and be aware of their expertise and their flaws in both their knowledge and their character, and they're going to want to be better in all of these aspects. To do this successfully, we need to invest in the time and the energy and give high value to the continuous part of professional development and professional learning. It's not enough just to have a sporadic training session or irregular coaching sessions. We need to make the time and the mechanisms every day and every week for people to focus on how they're going to be that little bit better and their goals in achieving that. And finally, we need to flatten the hierarchy, further creating the conditions and expectation where everyone can and will have the agency upstream to challenge where they see things that aren't excellent. This is a crucial part. If our aligned goal is that we want to see excellence everywhere, then we have to put in the mechanisms and give the agency to people to call it out where it is not. So that leads us right round to the question that we started with, and that is, are we flourishing? It'll be up to you to decide whether you are within your schools and within your organisations, and whether the mechanisms and processes are in place to allow you to do so. For our part at Manor, we're quite clear about the next steps in our journey, and we're really looking forward and excited to taking part in those next steps as we consciously tiptoe towards becoming a deliberately developmental organisation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our journey. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day across the rest of Educating Northants. This is where the conversation is, and it's great to be able to be part of the conversation. Thank you.